Hello folks, it has been a while since I uploaded my previous lecture. Just got too busy with so many other responsibilities. Nonetheless, uploading this lecture was my prime responsibility, and it was also important for me to upload this lecture on YouTube for you people. Today's lecture is divided into two parts, and you'll be listening part 1 today. The title of today's paper is How Not to Plagiarize but to Paraphrase Your Scientific Writings. This is an interesting subject and a very important topic too. And a lot of my subscribers and audience, they have requested me through email to prepare a lecture on this topic and upload it on YouTube. So here it is. And part 1 of this lecture includes information about plagiarism, how to detect and prevent occurrence of plagiarism in scientific writings, and how to remove plagiarism from your documents. The second part of this lecture will elaborate on various aspects of paraphrasing and removing plagiarism from the documents. Besides that, I'll also be talking about the ways to remove plagiarism, why it needs to be paraphrased, and then I'll be giving you many examples, really good and simple, that make you understand that how you can paraphrase your documents. But that will be in part 2. Before beginning the main lecture, I would like to emphasize that plagiarism is an unethical behavior which compromises originality, individuality, and authorship, legally and socially, both. There is no harm in using someone else's resources, but using them in entirety without giving suitable credits, without mentioning the original source, that is unacceptable by the scientific communities. So how someone can use other person's writings, expressions, ideas, conceptions, without compromising copyrights, without infringing any copyright laws and regulations. That is what is explained today in this lecture, part 1 of this lecture. So let us begin now. And here we go. So, in order to be ethically correct, one must understand plagiarism very clearly, which is not just a black and white issue as you see here. It is a serious academic dishonesty which infringes ethical codes of conduct. They need to be identified, all these problems related to plagiarism. They must be diagnosed and cured. Okay, so I find people getting confused with plagiarism and similarity index. So my question is plagiarism same as similarity index, or these two terms are different? Once you understand the fine line difference between the two, your life would be much better to deal with the problems arising due to similarity and plagiarism. Now, what is plagiarism then? Well, plagiarism is one of the most frequent offense occurring under academic codes of conduct, where copying ideas, words, pictures and presenting them as yours constitute plagiarism. Presenting someone's work, someone's pictures, graphs, photos as your own will be called as plagiarism. Replicating words, ideas, and without giving any credit to the original source and author will also constitute plagiarism. How about quotations? I see a lot of people use, text, sentences, paragraphs from other sources and put them in their articles and writings as quotations, which is not correct. You certainly can use quotations, but those quotations should be quoted properly within the quotation marks along with the original source. And secondly, there shouldn't be too many quotations in your article, especially if your paper is original, experimental. There's no place for quotations basically for a review article, for a book, for a general scientific paper. Quotations are fine, but then the number should be limited there. Lastly here, falsification of the information and source. So what I mean by falsification here is many times individuals try to leave some kind of good impressions on the readers, and that is why they try to provide information no matter what. And many times wrong information is provided and the source may be fictitious or deceptive, and such sources are always provided just to defend what is written in the paper, which is incorrect and ethically, of course, not acceptable. The sources should be genuine, should be authentic, and information should be accurate, because once readers start reading your article many times, and many of them, they just go to the source, try to find out what that original source is doing. It's not like they were there to check your document, but just out of curiosity that okay, they got this reference, so that's why they move forward to to know more about that particular article. On the other hand, what is similarity index? So the percentage of the text overlapping with that of the original source material is called similarity index. So if I need to explain this statement here, it means that the degree of similarity between your document and the document from where you have borrowed some text or paragraph or sentences, that is called similarity index. You should start feeling now a little difference between plagiarism and similarity index, though as I said, similarity index is a part of plagiarism, but at least you can visualize that finer difference between the two. Then similarity index also, it is also the similarity in a writing that does not entirely mean plagiarism. What I mean to say here is that even if your writing has some degree of similarity, that certainly doesn't mean that your document is plagiarized or not plagiarized until you go through a similarity report, which is called match overview. Please do not make any decision just to, after seeing the similarity percentage, because sometimes that percentage is deceptive, because many times there are overlaps like numbers, like names, chemical formula, mathematical equations, technical terms. So there are so many overlaps which may occur. So that's why I always emphasize that please go ahead and read the entire report and try to find it out where the document is plagiarized or has similarity index with the original document. Same thing here, even if you find higher similarity indices in your document, again it doesn't mean that it will be plagiarized or not plagiarized. Again, you have to go through the report and see where the document says those matches, review those matches. There may be like one word match, two words match, numbers, years, references, chemical names, mathematical equations. Even in physics also, there are a lot of technical terms in every discipline, so that's what you have to check before making any decision that what similarity index is and how it differs from plagiarism. Now let me take up various types of plagiarism. And as every one of us know that there are different kinds and types of plagiarism, I have already discussed a lot of those different types of plagiarism in one of my earlier lectures, and where I told maybe 16 or 17 different types of plagiarism. Here I don't want to go into detail, and I just want to touch base with few of them which are really important, and most frequently you may encounter these kind of plagiarism in various documents, whether it is scientific document or non-scientific document. So let us start and see what kind of plagiarisms are here. The first one is clone. This clone came from biology. It's a very common and popular term, mostly associated with genes, so it's like gene cloning. So when I say cloning, it means that replication. So if someone is replicating someone else's work without any change and without giving any credit, that is called cloning or clone plagiarism, because it's kind of a replica is produced by a person of some original source without giving any credit. The second one is Control C, and every one of us know what Control C means. We all use computer, we all use MS Office, and many times we use Control C on our computers and keyboards, which is nothing but copy and paste. So here, what does it mean? Control C means that if someone is just copying something from other source and pasting it in his document verbatim, means without changing a single letter and word, without giving any original citation, without acknowledging the source, that is called Control C type of plagiarism. And only few words are searched and replaced by selected words here in find and replace type of plagiarism. It's so simple to remember these kinds of plagiarism, because these terms are based on really popular terms that we use almost in our daily lives. Clone, Control C, find, replace. So it's not that difficult to remember. So find and replace is also some sort of where you change just few words, and those words you can find by putting that in the find option, and replace those words by replacing with some other word or phrase. Again, find and replace should be okay if you are giving any credit to the original source, but in most of the cases people don't, and that's why it's called plagiarism. Meshup is another kind of plagiarism, very commonly used by the authors. And in meshup type of plagiarism, what happens that material is copied from different sources, and all of them are merged together so that they look new, they look original, whereas they are not original. Basically, they are just mixed up and without any citation or source. And then it's really interesting. I like this error 404, and it's just like the message which many of us might have encountered might have encountered on our computers whenever we try to access any link or website, and it says that website is not available, or link is inaccessible. What does that mean? It means that either that website or link is corrupt, or there is no link or website by that name. So that's a fictitious source or website. That is what many people do, just to impress the readers that whatever they are saying, they have taken that statement or the idea from someone else whom they have quoted as a wrong with the wrong link or with the wrong reference. So please always ensure, whenever you use any citation or reference or link, make sure that those things exist. And nowadays it's so easy to go on Google and find it out in a minute. You would be able to know whether it is correct website or working link or not. 20, 30 years back when we were doing our PhDs and when we were writing our papers, we used to run to the library to verify all those references and claims. It was not easy during those days, but now it's very easy. So it's always better. It's just a suggestion that always please verify the references which you are going to quote in your papers. Then there is another important one, the contract plagiarism. It's a more serious one because it's more deliberate, where people have intention to plagiarize, where people have intentions, some intent to do something which is unethical. And in contract plagiarism, what people do, they hire other individuals to do their jobs. For example, to conduct their research, for example, to generate their data, to process their data, to write their papers, and so on and so forth. So that's basically unethical, and one should avoid doing this kind of practice. And the last one here is narcissism or self-praise. Now, self-praise, it happens sometimes unknowingly also. I agree with that sometimes it happens unintentionally, but always keep an eye that you and your team should not exaggerate whatever you have achieved. It's always better to present your findings and data and results precisely and in the quantity which is just suitable for that publication. Here, self-praise or narcissism, why I'm trying to emphasize is many of us and many times we use our own references, we use our own citations, thinking it's just like many of us presume that since the work which we conducted 10 years back, that work is ours, we are authorized to use that material, we are authorized to refer that material. Well, certainly we are authorized, but in a proper manner. Even if it is our work conducted 10 years back, if it is copyrighted, it must be cited first. And number two, that in-house citation should always be just, means the numbers should not exceed. Otherwise, it will be self-plagiarism or narcissism. In-house citation means that if I have a paper and I started giving my own references and citations, like say out of 50, my references are 20, it will be self-praise. Only use those which are really relevant to your study. And please never ever use any sentences admiring yourself or your team that you did this work was novel, this work was outstanding, this paper has achieved breakthrough. No, because they are reviewers, they are referees who got to do something, and that's their job to find it out what kind of work you have, what's the nature of your work, whether it is new or the work has already been done. So if they find anything new, something interesting, something novel, something breakthrough, they'll make it a point and they'll write it, and then everyone would know that you have done really a good work. All right, so now scientific writings are very technical and passing through the pits of plagiarism. And it's not an easy job to write a scientific paper. Many people think that once they get the data, once they have completed experiments, it becomes very easy for them to write the paper. No, it's not the case. It's really, a difficult part of scientific research where you have to put your own ideas, your own conception, your own thoughts, on the paper for the readers to understand. Writing is not difficult. The difficult part is that write in such a way that you can make that writing understandable to the readers. If readers do not have interest in your papers, then who would be? So that is why I say that it is not impossible, it is difficult and skillful. So one must be skillful, I would say, whenever someone starts writing a scientific paper. And I would also say that scientific writings, as I said earlier, is very, very, very technical. So one may plagiarize their documents while they are writing, unintentionally, inadvertently, or by accidentally. But how about others who does it deliberately? They just try to copy and paste and do not acknowledge, do not provide original source. And there are a lot of demerits of this kind of a practice, which not only hurts other people or other people's sources from where some portions were taken, but the science itself is being damaged. Academics is being affected. So here, that's what I wanted to say, that sectional plagiarism that exists when a section of someone's work is taken without giving any credit. A section of the paper, a section of the picture, a section of the graph, so anything. And as I said, that I consider unintentional plagiarism as the most innocent mistake, which happens all the time. And I agree with it, because it happens, I can do it, you can do it, anybody can do it. The important thing is that once we realize, once we detect it happening in our writings, we must fix it and refer it to the original source. The best remedy of that unintentional plagiarism is identify it, fix it, and refer that portion or whatever you have borrowed to the original source. Right? Now, copying other authors' path of reasoning and explanation with few different words constitute a style and a structural plagiarism. So it's very simple, as it defines a style and a structural. So if someone has a style or a structure, and if I take those from someone else's source without crediting that source, it'll be a style and a structural plagiarism. Now, reproducing someone's original ideas and discoveries without permission and citations, it constitutes idea plagiarism. In simple words, if someone takes someone else's ideas and publish and claim that idea as his or her own, is idea plagiarism. I can give you a very good example here. For example, a doctor wrote a letter to a medical journal saying for patients that corona, just word corona, will be easier for the patients to pronounce, rather than calling the disease as SARS-CoV-19, which may be difficult for a layman to pronounce. And just there was some other individual who had a knowledge of this idea. So if that individual reads this letter and write a paper sharing this idea without giving credit, would commit idea plagiarism. Because of what? Because he took that idea from that doctor and published that idea in his name. That is plagiarism. Basically, it's stealing without giving credit to that author. So that is called idea plagiarism. Then, of course, poor paraphrasing. Paraphrasing, the second part of this lecture, is fully devoted on paraphrasing, that how you can detect plagiarism, how you can overcome plagiarism, and how you can paraphrase your documents. But if paraphrasing is not done properly, then it may constitute plagiarism. And that I'll discuss in the second part of this lecture, various conditions, various parameters, various ways to overcome and remove plagiarism from your documents. And finally, there is evidence plagiarism, as this term indicates. Evidence plagiarism means that if someone takes away evidences of someone else's paper, someone else's work, and publish those evidences as his or her will constitute evidence plagiarism. And again, I can give you one very simple example which everyone can understand. For example, if I have published a paper on corona and I wrote that there are these conditions, there are these evidences which suggest corona is there, or which basically bolsters the mechanism of infections of corona in human population, and there are like 5 or 10 conditions. So if someone else take away those evidences and publish those evidences by his or her name, that will constitute evidence plagiarism without giving any credit to me. But if they give credit to me, that's fine. They still can use the evidences that I have provided, but it should come with an acknowledgement. All right. As I said that the second part of this lecture will be dealing with paraphrasing and how to avoid plagiarism. Here I just wanted to make a mention of a few methods which can be used to avoid plagiarism in your scientific documents. And there are a lot of ways, of course, to avoid plagiarism, and if paraphrasing is needed, you certainly can do paraphrasing, and you can summarize the source or writings or sentences or paragraphs which you have borrowed from somewhere else in such a way that the ideas and the concept of the original source should almost stay the same. You can change the sentence structure, you can change wordings, you can reshuffle words, you can use synonyms, you can change even the tenses in the sentence. It all depends that what journal wants to see. Many journals have restrictions. So here, if you are paraphrasing your writing or a portion borrowed from somewhere else, it should be presented in the form of a short summary rather than writing in detail something, using your own words. And the best way to achieve is that just read the original source 2 or 3 times, 4 times, and then just close it, think about, keep everything in your mind, think and analyze, and then start writing your own ideas using your own words, keeping whatever you're writing around the idea, original idea and conception. And that is how you can bring a variation in your writing. In the end, once you are done, you can compare your writing with the original source and see how much similarity is there. Even if after that, doing that, you see some similarity, you can fix it by paraphrasing. That's fine, that's particularly okay. So that's the way to do it. And always remember that please provide accurate, honest and proper citations from where you have borrowed it, which you have paraphrased, and and always verify, as I said earlier, citations and references whether they are accurate or not. And again, minimum quotations, please. Do not put borrowed material in the form of quotations in your papers. It will not be accepted neither by journals nor by referees. And always acknowledge to the original source from where you have borrowed the material or the information, and please do not forget to credit the authors. Now there are some other ways to avoid plagiarism, and here I'll show three sentences, 3 explanations, if you would like to say like that. Just I'll go through those sentences and see how you can write it. If you have to write a sentence having a citation within the text, anything that you are writing after conducting your research, analyzing your data, that some researchers noted that mosquitoes can be controlled by using predatory mites. That's a statement made by Bilgrami et al. 2017. I am a biologist, and that's why I'm giving examples from biology. These are examples of my own paper, and here I quoted Bilgrami et al. 2017, And I said that some researchers noted that mosquitoes can be controlled by using predatory mice. That's a statement that actually I have rephrased based on what other researchers have said. So this is some sort of summary based on more than one studies. That's how you can write when you study 4 or 5 or 7 papers and you want to analyze that. So take the common goal, take the common idea, take the common conception, so that your reader would know that those 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 references which you have quoted have this central idea behind that statement. Or if you want to write a direct quote, you can write it this way. Bilgrami et al. 2017 reported that predatory mites can control mosquitoes. I like this way a lot because it's direct, precise, concise, and easy to understand. So here is, you actually have pinpointed the idea, and you give, credit directly to the source. So Bilgrami et al. Got that credit, and he wrote, these authors reported that predatory mites can control mosquitoes. It's very direct. Meaning is same, conception is same, resembles to the above statement, but wordings are different. Statement is different, tense is different. It's a direct quote rather than indirect. The third one, if you want to paraphrase, if you want to change it, what you need to do is just to rewrite the sentence. Okay, close your eyes, read it 3-4 times, keep that portion in your mind and analyze. So here what I did, I rewrote this sentence or paraphrased it by saying it has been reported that mosquito populations can be managed by predaceous mites, Bilgrami et al. 2017. Now the difference between these three is like paraphrase sentence is totally different. I have changed the structure, I have reshuffled the words, and I also have used some synonyms here, which made this statement totally different, but it kept the central idea and conception intact. And what was the central idea? The central idea was predaceous mites can control mosquito populations. In all these three sentences, this is what it means. All right. Now the question arises, why avoiding plagiarism is so important? Why it's a big deal? Well, it is a big deal, because of what? Because of stealing publications, thoughts, ideas, expressions of others. If these things can happen with someone else, I think those things can happen to us as well, to our copyrighted material as well. We certainly will not feel happy if we see that someone else has published our pictures, our data, our studies. Certainly we will not like it. That is why it is so important to avoid plagiarism. That is why it is prudent that whenever you write, your writing should not be plagiarized. And it is also academic dishonesty that breaches ethical codes of conduct, and there are certain rules that everyone has to follow. It also constitutes inappropriate use of intellectual property, and which may be subjected to penalties, suspension, and expulsion. I don't have to disclose people, organizations who were penalized all around the world, whether it is USA, whether it is Korea, whether it is Japan, whether it is India, whether it is China, any country. The only difference is that the percentage of plagiarism, or the percentage of users, I would say, varies from country to country, because plagiarism is a part of the culture which has been developed due to the cultural practices, due to the cultural training, and that's why you find that some country has least, some countries have more behavior of plagiarizing or violating those norms, or Copyright Act violations, and so on and so forth. As I said, that is serious ethical offense, of course, and that infringes the copyright acts. It also robs, plagiarism also robs educational experience, research, writing, and thinking. So think about yourself. If your educational experience or my educational experience, my researches, my writings, my thinking, if it's stolen and robbed by someone else, how would we feel? We feel cheated. That is why these rules have been framed. That is why these protections have been provided to everyone, whosoever writes, whosoever has something new, so that intellectual property can be protected. Now, every every year, hundreds of papers are retracted, some voluntarily and some by force, due to many reasons. But plagiarism is one of them, which brings disgrace to the individuals, institutions, and nations. 10 to 14% of papers submitted to various journals have been retracted because of plagiarism, either before publishing or after publications, not within 1 month or 2 months, even in 8 or 10 years. Those papers have been retracted, or the authors were forced to retract their papers. And these retractions, they do not happen in a low profile university or journals or publishers. No, even well reputed journals have seen their papers being retracted, and they force the authors to retract papers published in the best universities in the world, the best journals in the world. So that is why that we need to prevent plagiarism to happen. Falsification and fraud leads to 11 to 15% retractions. And poor writing and composition, of course, that's not a part of plagiarism, but due to poor writing, plagiarism may happen. And 7 to 10% papers were retracted because of these characters. Then inappropriate methodology. We all know how important methodology is. It is very important, so we have to ensure that whatever methodology we are going to use, that methodology should be accurate, proper, and appropriate. But still, 8 to 12% being rejected or retracted afterwards when that methodology has been proved wrong. So that is another reason. Data duplication, that is I think one of the serious misconduct, where individuals publish their data 2 times, 3 times, just tweaking data here and there, changing the shape of the data, changing graphs and all that, and they publish 2 or 3 times, which is ethically not correct, and number goes between 6 to 10%. And lastly, due to insufficient or inappropriate statistics, leading 5 to 7% to be retracted by the authors or by the journals. So if there is a statistical analysis is not appropriate, is not proper, or it is overly done, or it's not properly done, there are so many things related to statistics. So always please ensure that these points are always there in your mind before you go and start writing your paper. Now I have some there are surprising facts, of course. Many of us might not be knowing some of them, and I think it's better if we know about them. So here are some very pertinent questions that we would like to know. And the first one is, copying a deceased person's work without giving credits, is it plagiarism? Yes, it is. It doesn't matter whether that person is alive or deceased. If the material is copyrighted, permission should be taken. Rephrasing and publishing our published work without citation. So what it means that if we rephrase our own published work, as I gave you example a little earlier, that 10 years old published work, and I want to use it without citation, is it plagiarism? Yes, it will be plagiarism. It all depends if my work 10 years before which was published is copyrighted or not, or it belongs to a journal or a publisher or a university or an organization. If it belongs, we need permission. If it belongs to me, then what I have to do, certainly I can rephrase it, but still I have to provide the source. Still I have to provide the original source. Are our lectures protected by copyright laws? Yes, they do. If the ideas are there, concepts are there, some designs are there that we are talking about, yes. For example, my lecture, it is protected by copyright. Whatever I'm saying here, whatever I'm writing on the screen, whatever slide is there, that is mine, because that's my idea, that's my design, that's my conception. So if someone else wants to use my PowerPoint, it's always a good idea that the permission should be taken. And it's not a big deal once we approach to other academician or scientists. In most of the cases they give you permission because you belong to the same profession. People are really nice and really respectful, and they always give you in most of the cases. Copying word meanings or synonyms from a dictionary, of course it's not. You don't need permission to if you are using synonym, you don't need permission from Merriam Dictionary or Oxford Dictionary. No, it's basically belongs to common knowledge, and I'll tell you what common knowledge is probably the next slide or after that. So you don't need it. Here you go. It's common knowledge. So let me explain a little bit about common knowledge here. Common knowledge is the knowledge which is covered by common license. That is available to use freely. You can use it without even having permission from the copyright holder. But free does not mean that you can own it or you can claim that material. Free means that you can use that material but with acknowledgement. So if, for example, you want to borrow a slide from my slide, and if it is common knowledge, sure, you can borrow, you can use it. Just put my name at the bottom, or you can say borrowed from such and such PowerPoint presentation by such and such person. That's all. Here, how to identify common knowledge is not an easy job. That is where you have to be a little bit cautious when you are going and deciding whether it is common knowledge or not. Here, this sentence has few facts. Asthma is the reason, Canada is the place, 6.8 to 8.4 is the number, and time. Which means that someone has conducted this study to have all these facts. So he has studied or she has studied that asthma rates in Canada ranges between 6.8 to 8.4% in 2015. That's a definite statement made by someone which will be protected by copyright, 100%. Then you see another sentence here which says asthma affects many children in Canada. Looks like it is on the rise. It's a general statement. You and I always make general statements. Even walking on the street, we say, hey, it's hot today, hey, it's warm today, it's cold today, it's very dusty today. These are just all the general statements. So if we go on Google and put these statements on Google, those will be the common knowledge. Although my name will be there, but you would be able to use these statements freely just by quoting my name and the time when I said that. That is the basic difference between the two. But I once again say that please ensure whenever you're trying to differentiate between common knowledge and copyrighted material, make sure that whatever you are borrowing belongs to common knowledge. If you are not sure, my suggestion is always acknowledge. Always insert the original source. Some more surprising facts here. How about web resources? Can it be used without giving credit? Well, some of them may, some of them may not. It depends, that you have to find out Whether that source is copyrighted or not, you have to go at the bottom and see where it's written privacy or copyrighted material or no material, whatever is written. Just you have to analyze it. So if that says common knowledge, fine, you can go ahead with the acknowledgement. If not, then you have to seek permission. Do verbal permissions avoid plagiarism? Well, it is not. Why? Because permissions are always needed in writing. If my friend comes to me and he asks me whether he can use this PowerPoint or not, or some portions of my paper, if I say, yeah, friend, go ahead, you can use it. Well, between friendship is fine, but it will not be accepted by the journal and the publisher. They would ask him to bring my permission in writing. That is why verbal permissions, are never accepted. How about encyclopedia? Again, some information available in encyclopedia may be copyrighted. So again, about encyclopedia, I would say please try to find out whether the information is copyrighted or not. It's always written on the source or the links whether that is copyrighted or not. Does the use of common knowledge violate ethical codes? No, it does not. So far you have used common knowledge properly by citing original source. Now I wanted to show you here match overview, the similarity report from Authenticate. That is a software to determine similarity index in scientific documents. Why I am showing these two slides here to you is to make a clear-cut difference between similarities and no similarities, or plagiarism and no plagiarism, and how those similarity indices look alike. So when you run your document on Authenticate, then you would see this kind of picture, two panels on right and left hand side, and on the right top corner you see percentage, that's 65%, which shows the intensity of similarity, which is 65% here. And right hand panel at the bottom you see these numbers 11, 7, 3, and also the sources 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in different colors. On your left hand side you see these portions which are plagiarized, which shows similarity to these sources on your right hand side. Green color, pink, brown, violet, red, all these are plagiarized portions of your document. So if I highlight just one source, you can click this source number 3. When you click it, you will see that. So here this violet color shows that this much of portion is plagiarized with source number 3. So let me expand it for you. I clicked this source, and when I clicked it, it opened exactly the same portion, the same sentences which were plagiarized. You can read it here clearly that after a cell exists, the cell cycle and has become committed to the neuronal phenotype on the top. Similarly, at the bottom you can see exactly same words, which shows that the document is plagiarized, like here and like there. So both basically are same, and it shows that it has 7% plagiarism here in this document, which belongs to this source, which is the original source. Then there are some misconceptions about plagiarism. There are some myths which people always come to me and ask, and they want a clarification about these misconceptions and myths. The first one they always ask, how much plagiarism is allowed? Well, honestly, I mean, being a professor, being an academician, being a scientist, I would say zero. Plagiarism means zero. There shouldn't be anything coming from other source without being, given credit. No, plagiarism should be zero. So when I say 0, then another question is being shot, and that is, it is impossible to get 0% plagiarism. True, maybe, but it is not impossible. It may be difficult. I would say it may be difficult if we are talking that plagiarism in terms of similarity index. So if someone is saying that similarity index cannot be 0, I may agree. Some places I may agree. Yes, there may be little percentages of overlaps. But if someone is asking about plagiarism, plagiarism may be different types. It should be 0, always 0. Plagiarism means you are taking something from someone else. So if it is not acknowledged, of course it will be plagiarized. Then another question comes is, why writing has 25% similarity? Is it plagiarized? Well, if any document has 25% similarity, automatically it looks like that it's plagiarized, whereas it may be not. Technically it may be not. And that's why I said that please go ahead and review, analyze, read the report to find out what is plagiarized, how that portion is plagiarized, what kind of plagiarism is there. Your document may not be plagiarized. You have to see the policies of the university, institutes, journals, wherever you want to submit your paper, you're writing your book. So it's not just this percentage that determines similarity index. No, there are a number of parameters that I have just discussed. You have to take them into consideration. In contrast, if someone says my document has only 5% similarity, is it plagiarized? Well, again, 5% is nothing, it's negligible basically. But again, I would say maybe that 5% similarity will plagiarize your document. As I said, it depends on number of parameters, number of situations and circumstances. So again, you have to analyze your report, you have to go through your report and find it out what has been plagiarized. And how it can be determined, how you should determine whether this 5% is plagiarism or not, or 25% plagiarism is not, we have to review this match review from Authenticate. And I would explain you in a very simple words. uh, I think every one of you must have encountered these questions from your students that, okay, how much plagiarism or similarity index is allowed by the university? Well, I think many universities, they allow a certain degree of similarity index, but with conditions. And what are those conditions? Like publishers also, journals have these conditions, but they have their own definitions. But by and large, nobody, no university, no institution, no journal, no publisher will allow you to copy, bigger portions from somewhere else. So here, what does it mean if someone says that you are allowed to use 10% or 8% similarity? It means that they would like to see your document, even if there is some degree of similarity index, they would like to see that similarity less than 1% from each source. So for example here, less than 1%, less than 1%, less than percent. Even if these sources are 50 or 100, but the total percentage should not exceed more than 8%. If it exceeds more than 8%, for only one source, it may be considered as plagiarism, because there must be one or two paragraphs. It depends, how big that article is, but then it will be plagiarized. So always please ensure and check the report, that how much similarity index is there per source. So if it is less than 1, not going beyond 8 or 10%, you will be fine, no problem with that. So I hope that you understand this basic difference, because a lot of people always ask this question, that how much plagiarism is allowed. Most of the universities have policies in place. Some of the universities in the world, they may not have, but wherever I give this talk, I always ask people to please have that policy in place. All right. Now, copyright is a bigger domain that includes plagiarism and similarity. There are a lot of things that can be talked about penalties, which if I start will take hours to discuss. But I'll just mention that in case of any copyright violation, both civil and criminal penalties may be imposed based on the type of violations. And all these, the violations, the parameters, the policies, they all vary from universities to universities, countries to countries, and work culture to work culture. Infringers may be fined up to $150,000. It doesn't mean that if I, plagiarize my document with 2 sentences of someone else's work, I'll be fined with $150,000. No, the amount of the fine, it depends the amount of the money involved and the intensity of the infringement, and that actually determines the amount of this fine. Okay, and then in those cases where the stakes are high, infringers may pay restitutions, the actual cost as well as the profits, if the infringer has already been benefited. And courts are involved, and they can issue injunctions to stop infringement even in future cases. And finally, court may issue some jail time, which may be possible within 5 to 10 years. Again, it depends how big the infringement is, how much money is involved, what kind of violation has occurred. So there are so many factors involved with these kind of punishments. And now, just to make you aware that there is a Copyright Act known as the Digital Millennium Copyright Act 1998 that updates US copyright, meeting requirements of the World Intellectual Property Organization and treaties. So copyright infringements may happen, I think everywhere. Professors may be involved, researchers may be involved, scientists may be involved, or laboratory attendants or students may be involved. So it's very important, to be aware about all these rules and regulations, because plagiarism certainly is a sensitive issue. And as I said that many universities around the globe, they have plagiarism policies or copyright acts and intellectual property protection rights. All these policies are in place for the employees and students. If some university doesn't have, those universities should also have these policies in place, and the universities which have these policies, they should apply these policies more strictly and stringently. So just in the end, I would like to wind up this talk by giving you a few more tips to avoid plagiarism. And I think in the beginning of the lecture I told you that good writing is very important to avoid plagiarism. So individuals' skills should be good enough to write the articles, to explain their data, to enumerate their inferences and ideas and conceptions. And that's always a good idea to cite while you write. So whenever you start writing, always keep those references in mind which you want to quote there, right? So keep them handy. So as soon as you write, they complete the sentence, wherever those citations are required, just put them in place. If you are thinking to do it, to include them in the end of writing, then you may forget. So it's always a good idea to cite while you write. And try to avoid copy pasting. Paraphrasing is okay with citations. And always try to differentiate between plagiarism and similarity index. That will help you in writing your paper. And if you are not sure, please use quotations or give citations. I always suggest use citations rather than giving quotations. And then you can also apply no interpretation, no manipulation policy. What does this mean? It means that no interpretation means do not try to interpret and change the idea and conception of the original source. Do not manipulate whatever has been said by the original source. What you need to do, you need to preserve the idea and the conception, the original idea and conception. All you have to just re-explain it in a simple way so that readers should understand what you are saying and what the original source has said. That is all is needed. Okay? And always try to seek written permissions from the copyright holders and ensure that citations are correct and existing. There shouldn't be any fictitious citations or wrong information. Try to identify common knowledge if you are able to identify. If you have any doubts, it's always a good idea to refer it to the original source. And lastly, avoid contract or self-plagiarism. If you are not able to write, you can take help from your colleagues, you can take help from your team, or you can ask yourself whether you would be able to write it in a more patient way by giving a little bit more time. Certainly you would be able to do it. But contracting it or self-plagiarizing your document, if detected, then the repercussions may be very not be good, as I have already explained them earlier, the repercussions of plagiarizing the document. Okay, so with this I want to thank you all for listening this talk and watching my videos. As I said earlier, that part 2 of this lecture will include details about paraphrasing. What is paraphrasing? Why one needs to do paraphrasing? What are the tools and the skills to rephrase your documents? And also I'll be giving many examples of paraphrasing where you would learn that how you can remove plagiarism from sentences and paragraphs, to paraphrase them and to remove plagiarism. So until then, I would like to thank you all very, very much and wish you good luck. So until a couple of weeks when I'm going to upload part 2 of this lecture, until then I would like to say goodbye. Please take care. Bye-bye.